AITA for not supporting my wife's decision to punish our son and letting him go to a party that will be tonight. Trigger warnings. Bullying, harassment, possible obsessive behavior. I, 45M, share a daughter, 17F, and son, 15M, with my wife, 41F. My wife's best friend, 40F, has two daughters, 18F and 15F. My wife's best friend moved to our town about 6 years ago. My wife and her best friend have been not so subtly pulling for the two 15-year-olds to end up together. I find this weird and low-key creepy. About 2 years ago, my wife's BF's youngest daughter appeared to have developed a crush on our son. My son talked to me about it and he had zero interest. So, we discussed how to tactfully but firmly let her down. She has approached him again a number of times over the last couple of years and he has reaffirmed his lack of interest. This past summer, my wife's BF's oldest daughter turned 18. Her parents went all out for her birthday. It was a whole weekend of festivities and events. One of the events was a couple's dinner for the oldest daughter and all her friends and couples. The younger daughter of wife's BF wanted to go to the dinner but did not have anyone to go with. She asked my son, and he agreed to go, but only as friends and just this one time. So, they went together. After the dinner, the couples all watched 10 Things I Hate About You together. It was my son's first time seeing it and he commented that he thought the Heath Ledger singing scene was cool. This is important later. My business partner, 44M, every year, for the last 5 years, throws a huge Halloween party. All our employees are invited along with close friends and family. The party requires a costume. And at this party, there are prizes for best individual costume, group costume, and couples costume. My wife's BF and her family are obviously invited every year. This year, the Halloween party is tonight, October 26th. So, let me get to the reason I am here. About a month ago, my son was at school, and coming towards him was my wife's BF's younger daughter with a whole song and dance routine. She ends it by asking him to be her date for the Halloween party. My son was so frustrated and reiterated, for everyone to hear, that he is not interested in her like that at all. Of course, it being high school, some kids laughed and she ran off crying. She has been bullied pretty badly because of it. My wife's BF is livid and thinks our son owes her daughter an apology. My wife agrees and thinks, at a minimum, he needs to defend her against the bullying. My son has said that for 2 years he has told her he is not interested and reiterated it over and over. At this point, he thinks it's kind of harassing to him and it is not his role to defend her harassment of him. I agree with my son. My wife and I have had a number of disagreements about it since it happened. Well, things have intensified in the last couple of weeks or so because another girl, whose wife's BF's daughter apparently does not like it, asked our son to be her date for the party and he agreed. They are doing a pretty dope couple's costume. This has really pissed off my wife because she thinks he should, at least, not go to the party with another girl out of respect. I think that is ridiculous. I plan on driving them to the party with me. My wife now does not want to go to the party and is saying I am an AH and raising our son to be one. Relevant comments. Does the girl's father know what is going on regarding the situation? He is not being mentioned in the post. OP. The girl's own father agrees with me. He hasn't said it to his wife because he does not want to ruffle feathers in his house, but he fully agrees with me. He has told his own daughter, multiple times, to leave my son alone. OP should leave his wife if she isn't taking their son's side over the whole situation. OP. In a marriage, with certain exceptions, you do not just get up and walk out the door over fights. She isn't actively harming our son. She had one conversation with him about it where he stated his position. I then defended his position and her and I, alone, have been fighting about it since. He is no longer in the conflict. It is between us now. But, I am not going to break up my family just that quickly. That is insane. So, you think it is shitty parenting to try and resolve conflicts rather than immediately leaving? Good to know. In no way will that make kids afraid of what might happen if they have a conflict with their parents. I am showing my son I am willing to go to the mat for him. Leaving says I would rather not be bothered with the problem. It frees me from the conflict, but it does absolutely nothing for him. That is still his mother. OP responds to multiple comments regarding needing to teach his son to stand up for himself and others within his close circles. Oh. I am usually in favor of that type of viewpoint. The issue here is virtually every considerate act my son has taken towards her over the last 2 years has only ever invited more requests and pushiness from her about dating. My son has a generally overly accommodating personality. This is really the first time since he was little that he has pushed back with force. I think it is necessary to stay pat. Update. Almost 3 weeks later. Given the events of the past couple of weeks, I thought I would give an update. My wife did not come to the Halloween party. I took my son and his friend and they had a great time. Unfortunately, only came in fourth in the couple's costume voting. After the party, tensions with my wife died down considerably. She still felt what I did was wrong, but she took a "what is done attitude. The bullying at school has gotten more intense. Apparently, my wife's best friend's daughter confronted the girl who my son did take to the Halloween party. That escalated the bullying from other girls, and 2 factions have formed among the girls in 2 grades over this, and it has gotten out of hand. Apparently some accusations have been thrown around about cheating at my son by various girls. My son has been unbothered because all his truly good friends know the truth. Last Friday we got a call from the school wanting to meet with us about the situation, since my son was the source, their words, not mine, of the issues. We met with some of the administration, and one of the teachers, on Tuesday. They wanted my son to help the situation by defending my wife's best friend's daughter to their classmates. He refused and talked extensively about her harassing behavior over the past 2 years. They pushed against his description of her conduct. But, we ended the meeting with my son promising to provide a list of her harassment over the past 2 years. Tuesday evening, my son prepared the list and showed his mother and I. When my wife saw the list, it was like scales fell from her eyes. She got pretty emotional, apologized to our son, apologized to me, and we had a good group hug. She is now 100% on our side. She asked our son if she could share the list with her best friend. My son agreed. My wife's best friend's response was to double down. My wife is going low contact for the time being. On Wednesday, we took the list to the school. It is a private school and has a strict code of conduct for students in and out of school. So, there is a possibility best friend's daughter may have some type of punishment for her behavior. I took my son out of school for the day and we hung out all day. Just dropped him back off at school today. So, this is the update. Edit, I wanted to add something I said in the comments. My mom for years was a counselor. One thing she taught me is that repentance and forgiveness are not events, but processes. Also that in order for a relationship to be restored, there must first be repentance from the wrongdoer. In light of that, a practice she had our family do was to write letters when one of us caused harm to another. The letter includes, in detail, 1. The wrong the person has committed, 2. The resulting harm that was done, 3. The immediate actions that will be taken to mitigate the harm, and for the long-term actions being taken to mitigate the harm ensure the action is not repeated. My wife is currently working on her letter. The person who receives the letter can respond and request that additional actions be taken to address the harm done. My wife knows she is only at the beginning of the process and that it is going to take time. Relevant comments. OP's wife's thoughts after reading their son's list regarding what has been done to him in the past 2 years. OP. My wife told her best friend that until she is willing to apologize to us, to not contact us unless it is an emergency or parents association, basically, Q quasi PDA for the school, business. Why isn't the school or police being involved in the bullying situation? OP. A lot of my work involves working with domestic violence victims. Trust me, they won't give a shit that my son is being harassed by a girl he is a foot taller than. The school isn't doing anything to my kid. He isn't in trouble in any way. And the police would literally not do a damn thing about this. They won't even go to or involve the school. OP clarifies on if the girl who went out with his son was being bullied or not. OP. She isn't being bullied is my understanding. All that she has had is the confrontation, which my son says she handled well and remains in good spirits. My wife's best friend's daughter is the one has had increased bullying as a result of that confrontation. But, 2 factions have formed. How OP's son is responding to the girl harassing him. OP. Just to be clear, my son isn't being bullied or doing any of the bullying. He is pretty unbothered by everything going on. Nope, he is truly unbothered, based on his words and actions. We have regular check-ins about this and he thinks she is ridiculous and annoying, but he simply does not care. I am like, are you sure? Are you completely positive you don't need us to do more here? He reiterates, no. He is very much unbothered. OP provides an example of his son's breakdowns of the harassment that caused OP's wife to change her reactions. OP. One incident that was particularly salient for my wife is something that happened the spring break 2023. She had apparently forgotten about this. Both families went away and did spring break together in Phoenix. One night, we planned for all the kids to go out and us parents were going to do a PJ date night at our Airbnb. My son didn't want to go out so the youngest daughter stayed as well. She took a bunch of pictures and posted to social media, I think it was Instagram. She captioned it, date night. Apparently, a bunch of people at school saw it and called my son. He demanded she take it down and she did. Our son told us when we got back, but my wife had forgotten about this incident. Update 2. 2 months later. After everything that went on with the school last semester, my wife's best friend decided to remove her from school, and she is now going to the local public school. But, a week ago, my son received an email from the daughter apologizing for everything that occurred last semester and asking for them to remain friends. Apparently her dad finally set her down and explained how everything she did would look from a guy's perspective. My son wrote back and said while he accepted the apology, he thinks it is best that he keep his distance. He wished her luck at the new school. My wife's best friend still insists that my son should apologize to her daughter. My wife has said, in no uncertain terms, that shit isn't happening. A few more kids were disciplined by the school since my last post, but things have calmed down on that front. We are doing family counseling, and it has been going well. That is all. This is the final update. Top comments. Commenter 1. The sad thing is, if it was OP's son harassing the wife's friend's daughter, then things probably wouldn't have gotten as far as they did without the police getting involved. I'm glad OP's wife and the wife's, now former, friend's husband ended up siding with OP's son and explained to the daughter how and why her behavior was inappropriate. At least she learned her lesson, unlike her mother. Commenter 2. The wife's friend knew deep down that the situation was out of hand but didn't have the wherewithal to come back down to reality, let alone apologize. I think she's the real villain of the story, she influences the child and doubles down at every opportunity. Commenter 3. Your son has been a champion through this whole thing, as have you. I'm glad your wife has come around, even to the point of shutting down her friend, who still doesn't get it. I hope there's no more drama coming your way. Commenter 4. Wow. This is a perfect example of how harassment of a male is ignored, swept under the rug or downplayed. You believed, sided and supported your son and it's refreshing to see that happen. Kudos to you, Dad. Your son wished this girl well and said he wishes no more contact with her and that's it. Tell your wife that the girl is an obsessed stalker. Yes, she is a stalker. Remind your wife that you never engage in a stalker because it only encourages that crazy behavior. Also remind her that your son cut ties with this girl and that's the end of that. He owes her no apology and if she insists, it might be time to have a deep discussion with your wife and how she should be protecting your son and not worried about the feelings of a mother-daughter nut job duo.